Can anybody see if that's not my head?
How about now?
Whoa!
You're sitting.
If I'm sitting, it's my head.
That's good.
Great.
Oh, it's recording you, not us.
Exactly.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh.
It's recording me.
Oh. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Why are you just recording?
It's for a teaching portfolio. So it's. Some people ask for these. They ask for videos of your teaching. They say, show dynamic, engaged teaching. So I'll try to be dynamic and engaged, but not, on fire. So there's a bunch of things I want to do today. We're in one of these pivot times again when we're going to do something new. And I'm recording my mug there. And what I'm hoping to do today is two main things. One, I want to spend most of the class talking about this Avoir Bidor article and the music that I think will help us understand some of the things that go on in it. It's a really interesting article to me because it talks about conflict in a way that is unlike, I think, the other articles about conflict that we've read. Although it's about the same place as some of the, it's in Accra, just like the sort of Pentecostal versus God Traditionalist Council article the DeWitt was. But it gives us a different way of looking at conflict that is, I think, very sympathetic to the multiple sides of a conflict. And it also does something else that's pretty interesting. It defines a scholarly conversation in which, in which a scholarly discussion in which it places itself. And that's something we're going to have to do over the next several weeks as we start this ending part of the term. We're going to do, it's going to be very researchy, very you-directed. We're going to consult and meet in class and talk about things, but you'll notice there aren't a lot of required readings from here on in. You're going to be generating those. And the starting point for doing that is figuring out what scholarly discussion you're going to work in. So we're going to talk about what a discussion like that is, how to find one, and we'll prepare basically for Monday's library session where we're going to do our best to actually sort of construct a discussion for ourselves. So that's the plan for class. And I hope at the end you'll have a sense of what this article does, and you'll have a sense of what the heck a scholarly discussion is and how you might go about finding one. So the first thing I'm going to do is play a little bit of this music for you and ask for your thoughts on it. I'm going to so this is the C also underneath the Avoir Bidor. Let's see if our sound's working here. It is. I'm going to play about 2 minutes of this for you, and then I'm going to play it again and ask you to take notes that second time around. So this one will give you a chance to just sort of watch without taking notes, and then you'll get a chance to watch with taking notes. That's a really important instrument. That shaker there. Pause it there. So whatever you have that is some note-taking device, I'll play that again and just ask you to take some notes and think about a couple things in particular. Think about, okay, so you'll have noticed already that this is a composite. It's a DVD of a group doing the dance called Zigbordi. It's not the group Zigbordi that is mentioned in the Avorkvador article, but the Zigbordi, the name of that group is based on the name of this kind of dance, and this is in the town where the Zigbordi group in Avorkvador comes from. So there's in other words, you're seeing the genre of the music, but not the particular group that's in the article, and you're seeing a sort of pastiche of a couple of different performances that are all synced to the same music. So the syncing is very good. Many of them seem to be from one large performance in a courtyard where different groups come into the middle and dance. But there's some intercut scenes that are from other groups. So a couple things I would look for. I would listen for what you can hear in the music. Look at the costumes. Look at the way that different groups are relating to one another. What do you see them doing to interact with one another out in that performance space? What kinds of and think also about the sound. How many different groups of instruments or singers do you hear interacting with one another? What characterize their interaction? Is it like or different from other similar music that we've heard so far? So just for example, the Gahamowo festival music. Can you think of sort of similarities, differences with this? This is Ewe music. So Ewe is another one of the people groups in Ghana, not the Ga. Okay, so we're going to count to 3, and then take some notes. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so let's talk about it. What did you see and hear in that short video clip? Jay?
It starts off with like a really clear call and response, so you see a definite leader and then like different groups that like follow choruses.
Yeah. So those 3 women that started out. So a call and response structure. Did you notice, is that consistent throughout, or does that kind of...
It's stronger in the introduction. Like, it's really evident.
Head.
Well, I don't know if this motion the dance motion reflects the song, but I think when they
This
like,
one?
this motion, I thought it kind of reflected the song rhythm of the song as it was like undulating, and they were kind of back. I guess it's a very important motion for them.
Yeah, this is something people love to write and think about, the relationship between dance and different parts of dancers' bodies and different parts of the rhythm. So Ebe music is one of the people think of it as one of the more rhythmically interesting African drumming traditions, where there's lots of different timelines going on, and there's lots of they call it polyrhythmic, so that there are many different rhythms going on at once. And watching dancers helps us understand how they're what rhythm they're listening to. So I'm sure that I think it might be synced to the this might be going with the shaker, which is the one really constant beat. Let's see if you can see an image of that. Well, I can't find it for you now, but it's the calabash gourd with the beads on it. I think it might be tracking that, but I'm not sure.
There are the three main women, but then in the audience, everyone else is sitting down, but like they didn't really serve as an audience, I thought. These are all still in costume, and then ended up singing in chorus and clapping and playing drums.
So that circle of people around there is also singing.
Like they look like an audience, but they're still performers at the same time.
Yeah, and some of them got up in the middle too and went in the middle to perform. Brian?
I have just a question. Was this one performance, or are there like video shots of different performances?
It's multiple performances. Okay. Yeah, when I watched the video the first time, I thought it was one because it's so perfectly synced to the song.
But it's multiple.
I think it's multiple because you can see that the courtyard changes. I think there are two main. There's one that is in a walled courtyard and one that is in a courtyard that isn't walled, that is raked ground. So, but they're similar. They're a similar setup of the space with a big circle of people in costume in dress that come into the middle. What?
I'm not sure what significant role what gender does in this video, but I think most singers were females and most instrument players were males. I would at first think that all the dancers are females,
but there's men in there.
There are. I don't know what.
And they're always positioned right in the middle in the shots that they have of men. You got men with like women on either side. But I think you're right that there definitely are gendered aspects to this performance that are really important. Men and women are doing different things in different spaces.
Oh, and what is the shaking brush? What does it represent?
Oh,
it's waving the brush.
I don't know if it has a special symbol. I think it's an ornamental part of the dance. It may also have symbolic significance that I don't know. It would be we should look it up. Similar things like that are used in leading lots of different Ghanaian music. Like for example, high life bands. Sometimes a leader of a high life band, which is popular music that comes from Ghana, they might use that same sort of pom pom like thing. I think something's long. I think it's long animal hair that comes off of it, but I don't know what animal it is. What did you all notice about well, let's talk about the music first. So thinking about the music, what did you hear? So we've got call and response from Jackie. Did we hear? If you had to describe a texture and you had multiple lines, you've got what? You've got a small group of leaders, and you've got call and responses. There are more than one sort of choral group, or more than one.
More than one.
Yeah, I hear more. There's more than one. So it's like there's a small group that starts things, and then there are at least two groups of singers that are singing against each other. And then what about the drums? Did anybody sort of parse out what drums you hear? You don't have to know the names of them, but just like high, middle, low drums, shake, or did you hear those coming in distinctly?
Yeah, like sort of low drums, and then the shakers, like, I don't know if it was just like one set of drums or a bunch of them playing, but it seemed like there were a lot of shakers.
Yeah, and the shaker goes throughout. It stays. I don't know if you hear this, but it stays constant. And when the song changes, you hear that bass drum change the pattern. The singers change, then the bass drum, and the at least in this recording, the shaker remains constant. What about? So these are some differences at the large scale that we can hear here in comparison to the Hamoa festival, where singing played a minor role, or in comparison to the apostolic singing that we heard, where you have no percussion at all. There's a similar kind of changing of songs where the singer changes the song and it moves. A singer decides on a new song and they lead into a new one. But here you have this background rhythmic texture that goes through, and people are dancing the whole time. So there's some. So dance anyway. I guess one thing we can take from this is that consistent rhythmic framework in the backdrop is really important to the social event, and that changes to some extent the relationship between audiences and performers. I mean, that's a nice comment that the audience is also performing, that they're dancing and clapping and they're there and they're engaged the whole time. I mean, one could certainly be engaged when you're listening too, but this is clear to an outside person that they're engaged.
I think also it was interesting, like how the dancers interacted with like the people who weren't dancing and also with one another. Like it seemed like during certain parts of the dance, certain parts of the song, they were interacting sort of like for an audience, like they would dance in a line, but at other parts they would sort of face one another, and it'd be sort of like a social interaction between the two people, like in the dance.
Yeah.
But they were still doing like the same dance for both.
Right. Yeah. Were there particular spots where you saw that happening?
The one where they shook hands and like.
Yeah, the guy in the middle shaking hands is it's a very he never breaks frame. His movements stay perfectly rhythmic and intact, but it's just his arm. I think that's kind of nifty, watching the sort of isolation of the different body parts with the rhythm. Did you notice groups saluting each other or paying attention to each other?
I couldn't really tell because I didn't really know whether it was like one group or like whether it was one performance or multiple. So it was sort of hard to tell like the interaction between the groups when I was watching it. But.
Yeah, the intercutting makes it hard. Did anybody get it? Did anybody see whether that was happening or not?
I mean, like within the group, or
did you see the group addressing different parts of the circle around there?
Yeah.
I think it happened in the two where you can see the circle of observers. I see it is. Do you remember the part of the article where he talks about the clap, how you give a clap to different groups? I think showing that it's in the round here helps understand how that would work in practice. Because it's not a proscenium. It's not a stage, like we go to concerts here where we're all sitting in lines and the group is at the front, or we're sitting in a seashell and the group is at the front. It's in the round. This performance context, at least in this video, is they're both of the larger contexts are in the round, so you can easily address different groups, and everybody knows you're doing it. So it can be a significant gesture for you to look at those groups. Did you? Yeah, Minkwon.
Just going off your comment where the audiences interact with the main singers, I think I heard some like repetitions of like phrases, almost like chanting, which would be obviously easier for like other normal people to join in.
Yeah, that everybody who's sitting there could actually sing along and do the movements. Did this connect in any way with the Avogador article? Did you notice things from this performance that reminded you of, or surprised you, or seemed different than the article, the way it depicted this style of music?
In this article, I thought I expected to see like very significant juju activity that's separate from music, but I don't see the big difference or see the magic to see them doing magic. So I mean, maybe the waving brush could be part of a magical activity, but other than that, I was quite surprised.
And Jack?
Also, like, the whole idea of the article was about, like, performance and, like, that presence. And just from the video, you couldn't really tell, like, exactly where this was taking place. So it was kind of hard to, like, see how the conflict would fit into it. Because, like, parts of it almost looked like it was in someone's, like, private garden or, like, so in that case, performance kind of loses its meaning. It's not really being performed for an audience of someone.
Yeah, some of those images are up against the wall with the
Right. So I feel like
and even that larger space there with a compound. I don't know if you've seen these kinds of things, but this is a reasonably common kind of sub-Saharan African house. It would be a like the women who are on the second floor. That's a large house, and then there's a concrete wall all around it with a gate, a metal gate.
Like performance, you think of more of like for an audience, more of like a centralized spot. Like that gives you like the context of where the conflict would come from. So I feel like this video focused more on like the dance and the music, and we weren't able to get the context as much that the article focused so heavily on.
I wonder if the audience, I mean, if it's not also something, an insight we can bring back to the article, that in a case like this, you might have an audience that's almost all composed of your competitors or other groups who are going to compete with you in this contest. They might be your allies or they might be your enemies, but they're people that you're going to compete against. That's one possibility. Although some of the groups that he describes are very large and have lots and lots of members. Laura.
Also, like in the article, like I didn't really expect the men to be like separate from the women, because like in the video, like when there were like a lot of men and women, like all the women were like in a line, and then all the men were like in a line, and they were like all sitting down, and like I don't know, like in the article, like I just imagine them to be like together, and like I'm not sure if I imagine them to be sitting down, maybe that. Yeah, I did this impacts.
So the sort of gender aspect, or the way the space was arranged by gender, seemed different. He doesn't really talk about gender terribly much in the article, or if he does, I'm sort of.
Yeah, he doesn't discuss it too much.
Directly, I bet you're finding things in the article that I'm forgetting, but it seems like it's, in my reading it's surprising given the way that the space is arranged here that it isn't more of a major focus of his writing. Well, let's move and talk about the article itself for a little while, and when we do that, if you want to, please bring back some of the comments or thoughts about this video if it was useful in putting it together. So I'm going to pull up the article here and just ask, what did you note down or highlight or flag as of interest in this article? What stuck out in your reading of it? Let's do a zip. Do we already do a zip zap zop discussion in this class? You remember what that is? Zip zap zop. Do you know what zip zap zop is? Is anybody here a theater person? No. So it's a theater game. Sometimes I use it instead of, because it's and I've modified this theater game as sort of a way of organizing discussion. So in the theater game, here's how it works. It's a way of making people pay attention to each other. We're all in a big group here, and we'll each get eliminated as we fail to do this. This is the rules. And so I would say zip. I would be pointing at Kunal, and if somebody else says zap before Kunal says zap, pointing to somebody else, then Kunal is out. But if Kunal successfully said zap, he would be pointing to somebody else. You could point to Mingwan and say zap, and if somebody else said zop before Mingwan said zap, pointing to somebody else, Mingwan would be out. And so you have to pay. Does this make sense? It goes zip, zap, zop. So like zip. Now you say zap before somebody else says zap. Okay, but point to somebody when you say it. Okay, great. See, so you are not out. But if somebody else had said zap before you said zap, you would be out. Right. So you have. So the point is that you have to constantly be watching everybody else in the group and anticipating where their movements are going to go, or you'll be out. Anyway, I believe there are many variants of this game. So I have noticed that I like doing circle discussions, particularly in the mid-afternoon. But I've noticed that sometimes, being a participant in these discussions as a student, I remember, like once the person talking goes past me, sometimes it's like, I don't know, I start writing poetry or drawing things, this sort of stuff, just because I'm not really paying attention anymore. So, because I've already done my thing. So the zip zap zap discussion is an attempt to make it slightly less predictable. What it is everybody gets to go. You get to go once, and you have to make a connection to what the person before you said. Okay. Those are the rules. So everybody.
What does the zip zap zap have to do with it?
It moves around like zip zap zap.
Oh, do you point at someone after you?
Well, although that would be great, we could add you point at someone. No, you just jump in. You just jump in whenever. You never get eliminated. Nobody says zip zap or zap, and there's no real theater. No real theater people will be harmed by this exercise.
So if a person gets eliminated, he or she doesn't talk.
That's a good bet. I should introduce a version of this game where you can be of this discussion technique where you actually can get eliminated.
It'd probably be more of a punishment if you had to talk.
Yeah.
That's right. Eliminated, and you can go out to the lawn and sit down on a nice day. No, all it is just it's just a discussion where everybody gets to go once. It moves around the circle in a random order. You decide when to go, but the one thing you have to do is connect what you say to that person, what that person said before you, and that's the challenge of it. So if you go first, you avoid that challenge. You can just say what you want. See, it's great to go first.
So when I was reading this article, I saw a lot of similarities between the way this author talked about controlling space in comparison to DeWitt. So I thought kind of an extension from what DeWitt said was so DeWitt was talking about how the music was being used to actually control space. Now I thought I'm not even going to try to say his name,
Avogador.
Yeah, Avogador kind of extended that claim by saying that so not only is the music being used to control space, it's actually also influencing the music itself. And that's kind of what I was looking for in the video, to try and see where the elements of the competition or conflict might manifest itself. Maybe it would be a lot easier to see if I saw the translation of the lyrics themselves. But yeah.
Can you point at a spot where this particularly happens in the text for you?
So it just seemed as a general theme. Well, okay, that's not answering the question, but to me, the thesis of this was that the social conflicts and competition are being seen in the way that the people make their songs. It's being used as a vehicle of not only controlling space, but also spreading their message.
I didn't really see the spreading space as much but I definitely I agree with what you talked about at the end there when they talked about spreading their message. I think what was interesting was it was clear that the songs were shaped directly to respond to people they didn't like or a different group that they were in competition with. And I just thought that it was very, very interesting how dynamic the music clearly is, and that there's changes all the time that represent what's going on socially. So it's not just a repetition. It's not like a group has a set repertoire that they just sing and that's the performance and they can compete with other people. The competition is more it's a constant change of the music itself, and I thought that was kind of interesting.
Yeah, they definitely use like diction and choice of wording to portray meaning in the song, but I do agree with Refot in that he said that it does create distance though. Like on 263, it said that like they would use collective words like they to address like an entire group of people, and that would create a safe distance between them, and like as a discussion of conflict and hostility.
So what are they creating distance for there? What is and who are they saying they to? Is I mean, do you have a sense of?
I feel like it's a they, just like general like opponents or like enemies. They have like different versions of enemies, like natural ones and then like actual physical opposing groups.
The spot in the text, I think it's interesting. I'll just read the part of it here where it says personal names are not generally used in the general song tradition in order to avoid charges of libel, but the insults are framed in such a way that audiences can fairly discern the specific individual target or the group who's targeted to in the case of the conflict between groups.
Well, the name of the ensemble groups are related. So many of them are related to peace and love, and yet this article I felt was about this warfare between ensembles, individual warfare. So
How do you make sense of that? So you're talking about stuff in this table up here, right? Yeah.
They seem so heavenly. So like they seem, the names are so benign, but what they do is like they try to put mad juju curse on each other's performance. That was ironic.
Do you think? I mean, is there anything that Vorkbador does with all these positive names to help us figure out what the heck, how they relate to this texture of conflict that he thinks connects all these people?
Is this how you do it? Zip.
It is very tenuously related to the theater game. It is only related to the theater game in that it moves around from person to person, and you have to connect to the person who talked before you.
So, if you zip me, am I supposed to zap someone else?
There's no actual zipping or zapping. It has nothing to do with the theater game. Let me rephrase it. It's just a circle discussion method where you don't go around. It's like it moves like zip zap zop. That is why. I mean, I thought of this discussion technique when I was thinking of zip zap zop. But I see here that actually the zipping and zapping they don't actually take place. It's just like it's a metaphor, man. So what should happen now is somebody else should dive in on this issue and make some connection to what you talked about with these sort of positive names while the conflict is negative. You don't have to talk about that, but you have to make a connection to it, whoever talks next.
I don't know. This
And you only get to go once.
Oh, okay.
So I don't get to repeat. I don't get to say add on to it.
That's right. You have to hold it in your heart and tell it. And put it out later.
So, wait, I'm sorry. If you speak once, are you allowed to speak again? Or?
Let's get one. Okay. I was wondering.
I can't believe we're capturing me explaining this way on video. Laura.
Okay, so on page 266, it says in the middle of the second paragraph, it says, this Hebrew piece of love example is a further demonstration of how themes of peace, love, and unity are assigned special priorities in the associations. These priorities are driven only by the framework of existing hostilities, fear, suspicions, and interpersonal conflicts. So I guess what a Vorkbador is saying is that the names that represent peace and love and unity, they wouldn't have to exist if there wasn't conflicts. So because there's like names that are like peace and love, like they're trying to solve like conflicts that exist.
One would never come up with a name like that except I mean, it would have no application without this world of underlying conflict. This is sort of the
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
it's showing that there's emphasis on peace and love in the songs, and I guess maybe like the overall goal. And that's why there's names for them. They saying about I want you.
yeah. So there's wait.
So
Say again.
So I think that the reason he has those names for words like peace and love is because he wants to emphasize peace and love, or not him.
But these groups.
I'm trying to find
They're on page 266,
Yeah.
or the table of those names.
Oh, well, I was connecting, like trying to analyze what he's saying there, like how it's a demonstration of how themes of peace and love and unity are assigned special priority in the peace associations. So I was talking about, what I was saying was, maybe he means that those themes are like emphasized, or what the goal of the association is, or what it's about.
Yeah, and look at the top of this paragraph too, where he talks about how many individuals in Lebanon and other associations take on multi-group affiliations, not because they wish to accumulate performance and social privilege, but because they must have alternative routes that easily lead them away from hostile encounters into the more stable environments of other associations. So they like the paragraph is in which this happens is about how people would show their respect for would have a network of groups with which they were friends, or with which they were actually affiliated, as well as enemies. So you have this sort of two kinds of networks that happen at the same time in these bigger performance, in contexts where there's competition between the groups. Miss. How about Ashley? What do you think? So we've gotten up to the point where we're talking about this sort of peace, this sort of the way terms reference peace and love, but work in a context of conflict.
The most interesting thing to me was the whole use of the juju and the magic, how there's a spiritual part to it as well, to the conflict, and that thing about spiritual warfare.
Yeah, up here, why interpersonal and intergroup discords are framed as spiritual warfare. Did you notice that other religions come into this?
Yeah, Christianity.
So where does that happen, and what is it? What is the way it shows up? I mean, I see stuff about it on. Sort of a competition.
Competition to like recruit.
And then on the next page, they have this thing in the middle of the page here, where it talks about this performance of which includes a quotation from the Lord's Prayer. And then it says, in an exemplary effort to manage tensions, conflicts, and competitions in a friendly way, the singers demonstrate their competence in Christian matters, i.e. as seen in the psalm setting, in order to emphasize the appropriateness of drumming in Christian funerary contexts. Did we notice that, like how funerals make an appearance at the end here, and how they're what's happening there? Why funerals, and what do they, what could be important about them for the way that different groups or different sort of religious entities relate?
Because when an individual has like multi-group affiliations, like when the person dies, that's when I read it in text that's when the performance groups try to perform or take in charge of the funeral. But it's mainly the village's ensemble that takes in charge of the funeral. But also, like, during the performance, other ensembles want to take the lead or get the more applause from the people. That's where the competition initially, and the hostility, I guess, begins.
Because everybody's tied to this person. I mean, and this happens too. I think it's interesting that they bring up churches in this context too, since this is one of the most common places historically that Christians and traditionalists came into conflict in sub-Saharan Africa. Since when a person dies, if there are Christians in the village, most likely they also have traditionalist relatives, and those two groups both have funerary traditions. They both have things that have to happen when the person dies. Both of them involve sound. And both of them have to happen that night. So you have, it means people suddenly share space because they're both connected to this person who's died, and they're sort of accompanying this person into whatever happens next, which they don't agree what happens next, and they don't agree how to get that person there.
Well, so from the funeral performances, I thought the competition going on here is like competition based on goodwill, not like malignant efforts to eliminate each other. Because initially they're trying to do good to the dead person.
Yeah.
So I think kind of like as a foil to what was just said, on page 267 it talks about when it says, when two or more groups seem to coexist peacefully in these parallel performance sessions, there are always underlying tensions as they compete for audience and excellence. These experiences are integral to Anlo Iwi funerary traditions. So, I don't really agree that they're really just focusing on the individual death. I feel like there's always these underlying needs to for recognition in terms of their music, kind of as in a sense, competition in itself of the music.
The locking of horns.
Yeah.
Yeah, that you have a spontaneous, what does it say? The spontaneous musical contest due to the close temporal and spatial coincidences of the parallel performances. Have you heard the Charles Ives? I think this is Charles Ives. The music where you have two bands it's a piece set for two bands that actually pass each other, marching bands. This is the kind of sound that's being invoked here. That you have two separate groups playing, but they're right next to each other.
Yeah, and also going off of how Rifat said that the focus is more on the musical competition, it says that when people know that there are two or more associations going there for the same purpose, like some people will actually not go because they know about the conflict. So it's like that's more important than the individual who died that they're performing at their funeral. Like it's more important, like the competition's of higher priority than like honoring that individual.
And the individual, to some extent, has he talks about the status of such individuals, and that suggests too that there's something to be gotten in a sense from association with this person who has died. that the person may be dead, but they still have a lot of symbolic capital wrapped all around them. Minquan, you had some.
Does the author mention there's like a membership and hierarchy in those groups?
He talks about the structure at the beginning, and names and ranks. Each association this is on page 260 to 261. So you've got chairman, vice chairman, general secretary, financial secretary, chief drummer, porter, women's leader, catechist, i.e. chaplain, and others. Let's see. So these are and in this I'm pretty sure I'm pronouncing Eve correctly, but I'm pretty sure I'm pronouncing Habebe incorrectly. This is what I think the IPA stands for. So they have this democratic hierarchy that looks like a business or some other voluntary association or a government.
So like each group has them?
Each group has these ranks and roles.
Okay. So what I found interesting is that when I first read this article, I don't want to go out to do its article, and because of the similarity in those conflicts, but I found whole another level of influence by music in this article, because in this article, the conflict separated the groups, like the Ga traditionalists and the church people, but it was just a bunch of people unorganized versus another bunch of people. But in this case, the performance has influenced each group, and then made them have such a more specific purpose or goals that made them more structured, almost like an army, or I guess more like.
So you mean because the groups are so organized?
Yeah.
And maybe because too that they're actually sometimes performing in the very same place as one another, and could address one another, or it could make friends with the rivals of the people that they're competing against.
I thought what was different about this than anything that we've read, or that most everything that we've read, is that most everything we've read, there's a conflict, and then the music is either representative of that conflict or changes because of that conflict or something. But here it seems like the music is the conflict. And I just thought it was interesting because it was different.
How does that? I think you're right that music is a way more is sort of the social occasion in which conflict is happening. Can you think of particular ways that works itself out here, or examples of where music is the conflict?
Well, I think each example that he gave, the music sort of was the conflict. It's like at these funeral services, they're conflicting over whose music is the best, instead of just saying something happens and then the music changes because of it. They were actually competing with one another over music, not over space generally, or not over religion. They were competing over the music itself.
Yeah. One thing I wonder, and I'm not sure. Maybe the answer is in here, and I've missed it. But did you notice how these associations come about and where they're from? I mean, these folks. The Ewe don't come from Accra. They come from other parts of Ghana, and they're moving to Accra. So you have all these people from other parts of Ghana moving to Accra. So the town, what's the town called? Zodza. That town is 200 miles east, on the east, or it's 200 miles away from Accra on the eastern end of Ghana. So it's a long way away. And you have all these people who have moved to the city, who are from towns that are rivals with one another. So you have all of these regional differences. I mean, that's another interesting thing when one thinks of kind of urbanization and conflict as something you think of in Africa a lot, right? It's happening very, very fast, and you have lots of people from different groups that are squished together in the city, just like just like the urbanization is happening here and all over the place. But one often thinks of interethnic conflict, but in this case, or intertribal conflict. But in this case, these people are all from the same tribal group. They're all Ewe people. They all moved to the city, and the competition is between these voluntary associations, which in some cases, at least based on the lyrics, seem to be tied to particular towns, like here on page 263 here, in complaining. In complaining about Zigbori, they mention Zodze, which is the town that the video we watched was made in. So there's these perhaps the regional rivalries that show up within an ethnic group here too. Let's see, I think we got Jackie and Kwang. You guys have the floor if you want it.
I think it's really interesting to know that competition is the top priorities of the association. Although they emphasize on love and peace and unity among the members of the group, but when it comes to competition, then competition is always come over those theme of unity or love of peace. On page 268, it says the 11th group expelled 36 members because of some reason like not attending meetings, repeated drunk at a performance. So because they failed to perform well, that's why they are expelled. So I think, competition is very important to the association, and they seem to really put it on the top above everything. They want to be like the winner in the competition, and whatever you do, you have to put that on top.
So sort of the good of the group becomes the good of the group in competition with other groups.
Should I go that? I'm just going off of that, like how this idea is kind of complicated more because individuals can be part of more than one group. So it talks about them in terms of having loyalty to their musical associations and encouraging that unity over unity to their village, and then showing that element of competition can get more confusing if they start to value their village loyalty more than the group. So it's this very confusing social dynamic where people are part of more than one group and have to work to balance it.
I think that's one of the most interesting things about this article. I mean, it's one of the places that he ends up to here. This is he talks about in one of the other sections today. Somebody complained about this. That was actually quite an insightful complaint. They were like, "Well, what does this guy really say about conflict?" I mean, he says it's complicated. Don't expect it to be simple. But I mean, it really is complicated for the reasons that Jackie mentions, and he talks about this here. The particular ways in which the finer details, of conflict and competition, the ways that they are conceived and articulated publicly require a holistic analytical perspective that transcends the boundaries of fixed structures and norms. It's a really interesting thing for him to say. Does anybody want to parse that for us? It's sort of wordy and a bit jargony. But what do you think he's saying in that sentence?